G'day ladies and gents, this is Kai for TTG Gaming. Today we will be looking at basic block coding to make some more interesting ships in Stormworks with microcontrollers. While Stormworks is a great way to understand the basics of block coding, it is worth noting that other games like Factorio also use some of these concepts. In Stormworks you can make any vehicle you'd like, but in order to add complexity and uniqueness to your vehicles, making use of microcontrollers is nearly obligatory. In order to operate these microcontrollers, some knowledge of block coding is required. With microcontrollers, some very interesting things can be made, like a centralized console for managing cranes on a Liberty-class cargo ship, or the remote controlling of turrets on a coastal patrol ship. So, let's get into it. Let's say we have two Boolean inputs and two number inputs. What can we do with them? First, let's look at some purely Boolean operations. Let's start with the AND, OR, and XOR blocks. The AND block will only output a true value if both of the inputs are true. The OR block will output a true value if either of the inputs are true, or if neither of the inputs are true. The XOR block is the same as the OR block, but will not return a true value if neither of the inputs are true. The second important set of blocks is the NOT blocks. The NAND block will output the opposite of what the AND block will output. So, only when both inputs are true will the output be false. The NOR block is the opposite of the OR block. Only when neither inputs are true will the output be true. The NOT block simply outputs the opposite of the input. When computers were first being developed, nearly every operation was done with these 6 simple blocks. Now let's look at some other Boolean blocks. The blinker block outputs an alternating Boolean value when the input value is true. The timer block outputs a true value only for a certain amount of time after a true value is input to the block. This can be used for self-closing doors, for example. In order to understand the push-to-toggle blocks, we must understand the differences between push and toggle buttons in Stormworks. In order to output a true value with a push button, the button must be held down. Releasing the interact key will set this button to false. A toggle button will change state from true to false when interacted with. So, the push to toggle button becomes fairly self-explanatory. When a push button is pressed, no matter for how long, the output signal will become a toggle output. Aside from pure Boolean blocks, there are also purely number operations we can perform. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and even combinations of those. Other operations like absolute value are also available. Now let's look at some blocks that perform operations using both Boolean and number inputs and/or outputs. The first is the numerical switch box. With this, when a Boolean value switches between on and off, one of two numbers is output. These are particularly useful when making doors or hatches open and close. The second is number comparisons, leading to Boolean outputs. Greater than and less than blocks compare two numbers and output a Boolean depending on whether the condition of the block is fulfilled. There are some particularly more complex blocks like the PID controller, which can do some really cool things but are beyond the scope of this video. If you want to learn more about these, let me know in the comments. That's it for the basics of block coding. Thank you for your attention, I hope you learned something.